Hello and welcome to a very Siskel and Ebert style of the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. On today, we're gonna go see the movies. So I rated them. Siskel and Ebert have what their thumbs up, thumbs down. If I think our audience is probably old enough to remember those guys. I don't know what else. So I went with mullets, like Yager mullets. So, if there's no mullet, bad. If it's a Yager mullet, it's good. So because I mean the 90s, and I'm talking like the full on 90s, the beauteous Yager mullet. I just came out of the Iron Curtain kind of thing.
Nice.
So
Good
also
rating
I will
system.
give yeah, it's a system, that's for sure. Also I will give the Rotten Tomatoes rating because I think that seems to be like at least it's fair. They give the critics ratings and the audience score, so that's always fun to look at those. Does that seem to be the fairest way, like to look at Rotten Tomatoes? I kind of trust their website because they give you both scores.
Yeah, honestly, anytime I'm looking at a movie, even if it is something on streaming or whatever, I do always wonder what it's rated on there because, like you said, it's not just one person's opinion at that point.
I think I like it too that they separate the critics from the people because sometimes people like something that I'm sure Home Alone has a horrible critics rating, but people love it. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of movies critics love that I've seen, and I'm like, I don't get it.
yeah, yeah.
I don't get
So
what the big deal is here.
well, you can go see The English Patient if you really care to. But without further delay here, we'll get this going here. The first Pittsburgh sports film up on our list is Sudden Death, starring Jean Claude Van Damme. I think Powers Booth is also in this.
Yeah, he's
Um,
the bad guy.
yeah, a former fireman takes on a group of terrorists holding the vice president and other hostage during the seventh game of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, which just happened to be in Pittsburgh at the Civic Arena. I kind of also put in the best Pittsburgh scene that this movie had, and I thought up blowing up the cars in the parking lot and Iceberg getting killed were probably your two. Iceberg, of course, the Penguins mascot, who was apparently a terrorist. Who knew Iceberg was a terrorist? Um, it was rated, I can't believe, 50% by the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, but only 39% in the audience score. It's just, I give this a no mullet because it's just really just a bad version of Die Hard in the Civic Arena. I mean, what say you, Tim?
Yeah, you're spot on. So this era of movies, Die Hard came out in, I want to say, like 1988, and then for the next 10 years, you had just Die Hard in a fill in the blank, right? And I think
The
there was
Rock,
like a
yeah, Die Hard at Alcatraz, yeah,
yeah, right. Die Hard. There was one that was like a tunnel. I think it was Sylvester Stallone or something. It was like in a tunnel. Die Hard on a plane. Die Hard in a on a boat. Die Hard like, and this was Die
yeah,
Hard in a sports arena, and it's the exact same format of you have terrorists holding people hostage. They're going to do something if their demands aren't met in a certain period of time, right? In this case, it was blow up the arena with all the people in it. They have the vice president of the United States as one of the hostages, and then there's a singular guy who is trying to single-handedly take them out, while the like whoever the is supposed to be taking them out, like the FBI or the police or whoever, totally
yes,
incompetent,
yeah,
can't don't know what they're doing, right?
yeah,
So it's a whole race against time. I think they even include Die Hard had like his wife was one of the hostages. And I
yeah,
think Van Damme's daughter is one of the hostages. I
yes,
think Iceberg
yeah.
kidnaps her. So
Before he gets stuffed in the, I think he stuffs him in like what the dishwasher or something.
or
Yeah,
yeah, some kind of kitchen apparatus if, is what,
yeah.
yeah, it's just terrible. I mean, it's really terrible. But I mean it is what it is. It's just a Die Hard clone action movie. And the Pens are in it. And I think Luke Robitaille, yeah, Luke Robitaille
Yeah.
scores the because because the original thing that the terrorists had was you had to meet their demands by the end of regulation, but Luke Robitaille scores a goal in like the final seconds
Saving everyone's life. I
to
mean,
saving
wow.
everyone's life to send it into overtime. And then probably the most absurd scene that people might remember is that Van
I know what
Damme
you're going with.
at some
Yes. Yeah.
point, yeah, has to dress up like as one of the Penguins goaltenders and then ends up on the ice and then has to stop a breakaway to keep, the Penguins alive and again save everybody's life. And he of course does because he's Van Damme, he can do anything.
Well, he's pretty good at doing splits, so that could be an
Right.
advantage as a goaltender. This, of course, was produced by Howard Baldwin, who owned the Penguins at the
Yeah.
time. So, no idea where Howard Baldwin is at this moment, but he's not making any more sudden deaths. No.
Yeah, probably not out there making Oscar winners.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the next film. Another probably not Oscar winner, but The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. It stars Dr. J, Jonathan Winters, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Stocking Channard, and M. Emmett Walsh. I mean, it's kind of a who's who of 70s cavalcade of minor B stars. I mean, Stockard Channing was in Grease, right? I mean, M. Emmett Walsh. I'm trying to think what else he was in. Fletch? I don't know. He's been in a lot of stuff. But and Jonathan Winters is always like a B player. But
Yeah.
the plot is that the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania basketball team is hopeless. Could they become winners with the help from an astrologer and some new astrologically compatible players? So what happens is I don't know if Dr. J is really a Pisces, if he was born in March or not, but his character is. So they get all these people that are born in that, I guess, go along with the sign of Pisces. I don't know if they all have to be Pisces or there's just certain signs. I mean, Tim, you're really into astrology, right?
Oh man, I totally into astrology. Yeah.
But Stalker Channing's kind of like the goofy, like, I don't know what you want to call her, Miss Cleo, or of the bunch. And I think Jonathan Winters owns the team. I don't remember. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I think, is one of the players. And Meadowlark Lemon, I think, is in this too, the Harlem Globetrotter.
He is,
So,
yeah. He plays a reverend.
yes. The best Pittsburgh scene definitely is I think it's the championship game. They come in through the roof of the Civic Arena, which still opened at that time because Howard Baldwin, the aforementioned Howard Baldwin, hadn't built his seats yet. They come in a hot air balloon into their championship game. So
Nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's I think I had fun. I like it. I give it a mullet. I definitely I loved it. It's a cheesy 1970s camp. Believe it or not, no critics reviewed The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh on Rotten Tomatoes, but it has a 70% audience score. So wow, double the score of Sudden Death. Go figure. I think this is one of those ones you go in with pretty low expectations. You expect a pretty silly film, and it doesn't fail to deliver with a feel-good ending and the Civic Arena in all its 1970s glory. So
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's like you said, it's I just love the plot is all based around you know, the everybody being a Pisces and and then the team like gets good again. I mean, that's such a seven that just feels like such a 70s,
it's like, hey
you know,
man, our
it's like they
signs though. You're a Cancer and I'm a Leo.
yeah, if they would have figured that out on like the floor of a disco like dance club, that would have just made it all the more 70s tastic. So
Well, there was definitely lots of polyester and bell bottoms in this bad boy. So
I also like that there's a lot of so in some of these movies we're going to talk about, they have to cast teams, right? And a lot of
yeah,
times in movies like this, they'll cast real players as, maybe even some
yeah.
generic players on other teams. And I think there's quite a few of those guys. Connie Hawkins is one of them who we've talked about on the show
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
And Norm Nixon, who played at Duquesne.
Jeez, I didn't realize Norm Nixon.
He's in there as well.
And he would have been a NBA championship.
Yeah,
You'd have
playing for
had.
the Lakers at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And then Jerry Tarkanian. I don't know if you remember Jerry Tarkanian, Steve. I
Yeah,
know
Tark the Shark. Yeah.
that's a guy we probably haven't mentioned on the show, but if you remember when
UNLV coach, right?
yeah, if you remember when UNLV was really good, he was their coach. He would always be like chewing on a towel on the sidelines.
Yeah, yeah.
And they actually won a championship in the '90s. They were really good there for a few years. But he's like one of the opposing coaches. So a lot of basketball cameos in this, circa 1979.
Yeah, very, very fun and cheesy movie. If you get a chance, go see it. I'm sure it's out there floating around somewhere for free. The next up on our list is a slightly more serious film. Concussion, starring Will Smith, Alec Baldwin, David Morse, Albert Brooks as Dr. Cyril Weck, which I'm sure Dr. Weck just loved that, knowing him.
Yep.
The plot is in Pittsburgh, an accomplished pathologist, Dr. Bennett Amalu, is that how you pronounce it? Amalu? That sounds right, uncovers the truth about brain damage in football players who suffer repeated concussions in the course of normal play. Of course, I think the best Pittsburgh scene, and it really doesn't involve like Pittsburgh per se, but it's Dr. Amalu diagramming plays. He has no knowledge of like football, but he's like trying to diagram plays. So he writes like S and O. And they're like, isn't that supposed to be an X? He's like, no, this is Steelers. And like, what's the O? Others. So and there were some shots at Couples Field down on the south side that were pretty cool. So David Morris as Mike uh, what's his name? Mike Webster was amazing, I thought too. Um I give it a mullet. It's a scary look into the dirty underbelly of professional football. Like I said, I love David Morris in his role as Mike Webster. It actually has a 74% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, but only a 58% score from the critics. So take that as you will. I remember Albert Brooks as Dr. Wecht in that. That's an interesting role for him. But
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
a what do you think of concussion there, Tim? Definitely a more serious entry on our
Well,
list.
sure. I mean, and obviously it's a true story, and it's a bunch of Mike Webster, Justin Strelzik, and some of the people that we've lost tragically for the Steelers, and it definitely doesn't paint Pittsburgh in a good light, right? Like we're this
No,
football obsessed town that just feeds people to the wolves in their brains, and I think that the work that Dr. Amalu did was probably important for sure. Um, I what I didn't like about the film, to be honest, I probably wouldn't give it a mullet only because it's just so like over dramatic. I mean, there's literally a scene where like NFL goons are calling like his house and hanging up, and then they chase down his pregnant wife, and then I think she has a miscarriage. I mean, I'm sure that in real life the NFL was probably pushing back against whatever they were trying to expose or bring to light. I'm sure the NFL was doing everything in their power to be like, everybody look the other way. But I can't, my mind can't go to, Roger Goodell, who was played by, I think, Luke Wilson in this movie. So my mind can't go to Roger Goodell, you know, with hired goons to chase around Dr. Malu's wife. I just, I'm sorry. I'm kind of like, come
who do you
on.
hire like Rodney Harrison? That sounds like a job for Rodney Harrison.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's like
there's
Rodney, you want to
scenes
pay off some of them fines I find you?
and there's scenes where like fans are yelling at him and stuff. Again, it definitely doesn't paint Pittsburgh in a great light, but I mean it's also a true story and it's real and it's probably we didn't we're hit that guy and we didn't it's good now that we think about that kind of stuff, right? We think about the actually like these are real
Well,
people with lives and
it's
potentially
changed the game of football.
it's changed,
And
yeah, for
and
sure.
somewhat for the better. I mean, there are some things like I wish like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson wouldn't be able to just dance on the sideline. That's part of football. Football's a dangerous game. People are going to get hurt. And now they're even talking about outlawing what do they call it? Hip drop tackles. If they do that, I don't know how you tackle people then.
Right.
So it's kind of gone to the other extreme. It's like I like the fact that they got rid of remember in like the 2000s like people used to like trip and fall and be on the ground and now they just like touch them, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened? And this wasn't even a Baltimore Pittsburgh thing. Like somebody was laying on the ground. People would literally take their helmet and jump into them on
Right.
the
Right.
ground.
Right.
That was ridiculous. That
Sure.
that was just And maybe even like I love Hines Ward's ferocious blocking, but maybe you don't need to block somebody that's 50 yards away. That's
Y-
probably a little unnecessary.
Yeah, like I said, important work. I'm glad it was. I'm glad that Dr. Amalu did all that. I'm glad he brought things to light that needed to be brought to light. I just thought it was so like
Over.
the movie just had to movie and make it like super sensationalistic where like I gave up everything. The NFL tried to kill me and to kill my family and you know sorry, I just don't. I
Didn't that
can't.
one guy from the Bears like threaten him, like the retired linebacker? I can't remember in the
Yeah.
movie. I can't remember the guy's name.
I just know that the hired goons like chased down his wife and stuff. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
again, not a bad movie. Good, like good. I think I would have liked that better as a documentary than a sensationalized. Like have to make it super dramatic. You know, like he didn't just risk his reputation. He didn't just go up against this really powerful NFL. He literally risked his life and his family's life and everything he holds dear just to fight the evil Roger Goodell. And and
Well,
I
Roger Goodell's evil, but for other reasons.
well, and that was such an easy right. That was such an easy target for them to make him the bad guy and make the NFL the bad guy. And I don't know if the NFL again. I'm sure the NFL was opposed. If they were like hired goons opposed, then they wouldn't have made all the changes they made.
Fighting Back, the Rocky Blyer movie. We're kind of sticking with serious films here. Although, I mean, this is a made-for-TV movie, but I still included it. And it's the starring Robert Urich as Rocky Blyer, Art Carney as Art Rooney, and Richard Hurd, who I think was Chuck Noll, and Howard Cosell as himself. So, or no, it's Richard. I think Howard Cosell's in it. So the plot of the movie is football jock Rocky Blyer made it all the way to the pros with the Pittsburgh Steelers, only to be drafted in the Vietnam War. He's wounded by a hand grenade, but then he returns to the U.S. and told he'll never walk again. After a long rehabilitation, he not only learns to walk, he ends up playing for the Super Bowl champion Steelers. And Robert Urich is amazingly good looking. And if you ever like, I give this a definite mullet for the veteran Purple Heart recipient, and just great for veterans and great story all around. Best Pittsburgh scene was a shot of Robert Urich kind of outside of Three River Stadium. I think it was definitely edited where like Robert Urich was like, I ain't going to Pittsburgh. It's like so, so but they had lots of other good shots of like the Steelers practicing and such, and it's just it's a made for TV movie for sure, but it's an inspirational story, and I'm surprised Rocky Blyer doesn't get more like hype. Like he's definitely one of the heroes of like, especially around Veterans Day. You would think him, and I mean they used to give Villanueva a lot of hype too. Everybody kind of forgets that Rocky Blyer actually was wounded in combat, and it's a heck of a story, really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it is. It is a great story. They do have him, Steve, at the games at the games at Acrisure Stadium. Sometimes they always honor a veteran,
Yeah, and
like
that's
around
an
the third
easy.
quarter.
Yeah, Rocky Blyers and him and well, I don't know where Villanueva is anymore, but like him and
Yeah.
Villanueva are easy gets, I'm
Yep.
sure.
So he's usually involved in that. Always impeccable timing for that, by the way. I don't know if this is on purpose or just coincidence, but it seems to me that they always mark the person out after the other team has just scored a touchdown and everybody's in a foul mood. And then they're
Yeah.
like, this guy
Well, can't
served
boo.
for 30 years. And then everybody stands up and everybody's clapping and,
It's like you can't
really
boo
appreciative of
Rocky
their service and
Blyer.
realizing that football is pretty meaningless compared to whatever this guy did or woman did that they brought out. So
Yeah,
well timed Steelers. So you gave it a mullet, Steve?
I did. I did.
Okay.
Inspirational mullet. I
I'll
was
go with I'll,
inspired by this.
I'll go with you on that. Hey, one other note. Well, two other notes. Number one, his wife in the movie is Bonnie Bedelia, who we kind of referenced earlier. She was the wife in Die Hard.
No, wow, nice.
So
Wow,
just
it's
to
the
tie
six
things
degrees
together.
of Rocky Blyer
Yeah, yeah.
or John May or Bruce Willis. I don't know.
The other note, you said it was made for TV, and so kind of some of the production value was low. I think one thing that maybe people that are younger might not remember is for a long time there was this very clear delineation between TV and movies.
Um, staying with now this movie is actually a quality film. Not everybody likes it, but I really like it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if Tim likes it. The Natural stars Robert Redford, Robert Duvall, Glenn Close, Kim Basinger, Wilford Brimley, Joe Don Baker, Richard Farnsworth, and Darren McGavin. I don't know if anybody remember Darren McGavin. He was the dad on what's it called, A Christmas Story.
Christmas Story. Yep.
He's also in what's it called, Billy Madison. Actually, he's the dad on Billy Madison too. But I mean, Wilford Brimley's obviously the diabetes guy, but actually he was somewhat of a serious actor before that. Joe Don Baker, my goodness, I couldn't name all the films. Joe Don Baker has been in everything and anything. The only thing I remember Richard Farnsworth for besides this was the PBS production of Anne of Green Gables. So Robert Duvall, of course, what are we looking at? The oh my goodness, what hasn't Robert Duvall done? The Godfather, probably. He was
Yeah.
the conciliary. And of course, Robert Redford, he's an all-time greatest, one of the greatest actors of all time.
Yeah.
Am I
Robert Duvall, by the way, as of the time of this recording, still with
oh,
us, and I think might still be acting in some
oh
things.
my gosh. I mean, the last thing I can't remember the last movie I saw him in. I'm trying. What was the asteroid movie, Deep Impact? I remember him in that, but that was a
So
long time ago. That was like the '90s, and he's made a ton of movies after that.
yeah, the last thing I saw him in was The Pale Blue Eye, which was another Pittsburgh shot movie that
But
came
didn't have
out
any
in
sports in it.
2022.
Yeah. So the plot of The Natural is a middle-aged unknown comes seemingly out of nowhere to become a legendary baseball player with almost supernatural talent. Okay, the best Pittsburgh scene. This is going to be painful for us, Tim, isn't it? Um, Pirates pitcher Herman Youngberry channels his inner Stan Belinda to give up one of the most dramatic fictional home runs in baseball history. So there you go, New York. Your baseball team can finally win a pennant. Ah, take that, New York Mets. But no, the fictional team is the New York Giants. Is set in 1930s baseball. Robert Duvall's like the sleazy newspaper reporter guy. Glenn Close is kind of like the angelic girlfriend. Kim Basinger's the sleazy kind of lady trying to make him go awry. Who Wilford Brimley's the hard luck coach. He's great. Wilford Brimley's actually really great. And him and Farnsworth are really good. They're both the coaches of the Knights.
Yeah.
And Darren McGavin's a gambler trying to buy off, Robert Redford. So it's just I really like this movie. It's really good. It has really high ratings, like 88% on what's it called? So that definitely gets a mullet for me. But 88% on Rotten Tomatoes audience score, 83% um critics. So it's a beloved. It's just a beloved movie. That game came out in 1984. Um, I still give it a mullet, even though the Pirates lose. I wish it could have been the Cubs or the Cardinals instead, but I digress. Tim, are you a fan of The Natural, Tim?
Yeah, I love this movie. We watched this 1,000 times when I was a kid. We
The
had it
music
on.
was like iconic too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that music when he hits the home run at the end, very iconic.
Da-da, dun-dun-dun-dun,
Yes.
da-da.
Yep. And it's funny. For some reason when I was a kid, it didn't bother me that it was the Pirates giving up the home run. And it was kind of odd because the team, it wasn't, I think you said Giants, Steve, but it wasn't the Giants. It was the New York Knights. So it was
Did
a
I say
fic.
Knights? I meant Giants. Yeah,
No, no, no,
I
no.
meant Knights. I meant
Yeah,
Knights.
yeah.
Yes.
And so it was a
There was no
fictional,
Willie Mays or the Giants win the
well,
pennant.
it
The
was a
Knights
fic,
win the pennant. The Knights win the pennant.
I think it was a
Yeah.
fictional New York team, but then it was like they were playing against real major league teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, they beat the Pirates to win the pennant. But yeah, we used to watch this over and over again, but my parents would always make us skip the scene where he gets shot. So what happens in the movie is
Yeah, he
he,
gets shot or Joe Don Baker, the whammer. Yeah.
right, he strikes out. Yeah, so he's going to be
He's
this
like a
young.
Babe Ruth kind of character. Yeah.
He is, yeah. He can pitch, he can hit. He's got this promising career, and then he goes up to this woman's hotel room, and she ends up being crazy, and she shoots him, and then she kills herself. And then the film fast forwards like, yeah, I forget, 15 years or something. He's like an old man at this point, and that's kind of the whole plot, is that he actually gets back into baseball after all of that. But my parents used to always make us skip that scene because it's basically him going up to her hotel room and then her shooting him and committing suicide. And I think they just didn't want 7 or 8 year old me and my brother to see that.
That's an interesting choice. And the shots in Wrigley Field, like this, like the one scene with Glenn Close in that hat, like
Mm-hmm.
they had to wait for the sunlight to actually come through, like that part of Wrigley Fields.
Wow.
And I mean, of course, Wrigley Field still exists to this day, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Like so they really shot it at Wrigley. I don't know what stadium they used for. I didn't look that up for the New York Knights in New York, but it kind of looks like. I mean, it looks like a 1930 stadium with the pillars and the aisles and stuff. And it's just a really cool movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's just a great film. And the next one up is it's a movie called Chasing 3000, and it stars the late Ray Liotta and Rory Culkin, who's one of the Culkins that are not named Macaulay or Kieran. I didn't realize like the Culkins are like the Baldwins. They're just everywhere. So the plot to this movie is two brothers drive across country to see their hero Roberto Clemente get his 3,000th hit. Um, the best Pittsburgh. I think they're people from Pittsburgh. There's still a family in Pittsburgh, but they moved across country. The best Pittsburgh scene is there's a whole scene where they're going through the Fort Pitt tunnels and talking about getting hot dogs at the O. And of course, the O is one of the things that doesn't exist anymore. And that scene seems to last longer than it really should to get through the Fort Pitt tunnels, unless their grandfather was driving like 15 miles per hour. So, which could happen in Pittsburgh. You never know. Um, Rotten Tomatoes rating, the critics didn't review it, but it has a 62% audience score. For my rating, it's a little too sappy for me, but I mean, if you like it, that's on you. I'm just not a big sappy movie person. It's just, going to see Clementi's last hit, tearjerker all around. So, what say you, Tim?
Yeah,
About
I would agree. It's nothing that great, but it is kind of neat that somebody decided to capture kind of the spirit of the impact that Roberto Clemente had on people, if that makes any sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that
I
somebody would drive all the way across the country just to see him. And then of course that like they didn't know at the time that would have been his last hit. Uh so
I
it
think one of the brothers has like a serious illness too, and they end
right.
up. There were some scenes in PNC Park later in the movie that show them going back when they're older. Of course, his brother is still very sick. So,
Hmm.
all right. I'm not a fan of sappy movies, so I didn't give it a mullet. If you want to give it a mullet, Tim, go for it. It's your call.
Now I'll side with you on that one.
Okay. Next up, Angels in the Outfield, but the original. So not many people might know this, but in 1951, they made a movie about the Pirates called Angels in the Outfield. It stars Paul Douglas, Janet Leigh. I don't know who Paul Douglas is, but Janet Leigh is known for Psycho and the Manchurian Candidate. She famously gets killed in the shower. So in like the first half an hour of the movie, like she's literally in the movie for a half an hour. It's like that's it. Janet Leigh's she's done.
But she has the most famous scene.
Yeah. So the plot is the Pittsburgh Pirates' brash and abusive manager receives help of an angel to win games and becomes a better person in the process. So it's very 1950s. And actually, you got on Rotten Tomatoes an 83% from the critics and only a 65% from the audience. But I mean, 65% isn't terrible. And great scenes. Pittsburgh best Pittsburgh scenes was great shots of Forbes Field and the Cathedral Learning. They actually like took. I don't know if it's just B-roll but it's definitely somebody went to Pittsburgh and did some filming in 1951. So it's pretty cool. Um, yeah, definitely. My rating, I gave it a heavenly mullet for everyone could. We all could use a little help from above every once in a while, right, Tim?
Sure.
If not becoming winning some baseball games, at least becoming a better person. So, there's definitely a trailer for this. We'll have the link on our website if you want to check out the trailer to the 1951 version of Angels in the Outfield. Sorry, there's no Danny Glover in this one, and it's not in California because that was totally done just because so the Disney probably owned the Angels or something. I don't know. But what say you about Angels in the outfield, Tim?
Yeah, like you said, it's like one of those perfect movies for the time, like
It's a kids movie. Yeah.
yeah, if it were somehow like tied into Christmas, you'd see it, played at Christmas, or it's like one of those kinds of movies. And it's the joke at the time was I think it was the Pirates because the Pirates were so bad,
Right.
like that. Well, that team would never win, so that was why I think they picked the Pirates for that movie, which is kind of funny because if they remade that today, maybe they could pick the Pirates again. But just a footnote, Steve. You were referencing the remake that they did in 1994 with Danny Glover and Tony Danza. Uh, that was like you said. It was the were they called the California Angels at the time?
They might have been. No, I
Anaheim.
think they might have been Anaheim back
Well, it was
then.
the Angels team that plays in
Angels.
Los Angeles, and to Steve's point, they probably picked that because, well, maybe just because that's where they film it, right?
Yeah.
But the
Also the
Pittsburgh
name.
one Pittsburgh tie-in with that, they released that movie in the summer of '94, and they had the premiere in Pittsburgh at the All-Star game. So
Huh.
when Pittsburgh hosted the baseball All-Star game, there was a whole weekend of like events leading up to it. And one of the events, I think it was like the Sunday night or Monday night before the All-Star game, was that they premiered this at Three River Stadium, and Tony Danza was there, Danny Glover was there,
Wow.
and and I went to this
I think
actually.
Christopher Lloyd's in the remake too.
Yeah, he was not
He
there.
might have been the original too. He's so old now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he was not there, but Danny Glover and Tony Danza were, and I actually went to that, Steve, and Tony Danza talked to everybody before it started, and then they showed the movie, and I remember thinking like, boy, this isn't very good, but it's cool to sit here like at the stadium and watch this with the stars of the movie present. So
And also, I do believe like one. I don't. I think the link too. There's a link of like they had cameos in the middle of the movie, like of people just saying talking about because I guess the manager says, "Oh, there's angels helping us." So I had like Ty Cobb. I don't know about. I don't think Honus Wagner. I can't remember. I think Honus Wagner maybe, but they had Ty Cobb and they had Bing Crosby, who was obviously a part owner of
oh,
Pirates at
nice.
the time. So
Oh, that's
yeah, it's
funny.
pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Ty Cobb too. That's interesting that Ty Cobb would be in a.
Well, he was like he all comes off like a really nice guy too. It's like, geez, maybe he is a nice guy. Maybe he's not the racist Al Stump made him out to be. I don't know.
I think Ralph Kiner. I think there's some real pirates in there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The next one is definitely a movie that could not be made today. There's no way they would ever make this movie. They will never make this movie, Tim. Ever, ever. Because it's Black Sunday, and I mean, it's not. You would think, well, what is it? A racial film? No, no, no. It stars Robert Shaw, Bruce Dern, and Matthew Keller. The plot is it's the story of a Black September terrorist group attempting to blow up the Goodyear blimp hovering over the Super Bowl stadium with 80,000 people and the President of the United States in attendance. And I do believe they are actually they weren't like doing it to like hold anybody hostage or anything. They were like terrorists. They're for real terrorists. Just wanted to kill as many people as humanly possible to prove a political point. So Bruce Stern is kind of the bad guy in it, and it's rated. Let's see, on it's 1977. Boy, 65% audience score again, and 74% by the critics. Um, the best Pittsburgh scene is definitely a shot of the Steelers coming out for the Super Bowl, like the iconic. You ever see like where the four of them come out? It's from I think it's from NFL Films
Hmm.
actually, and it's pretty cool. And I think there's shots of the blimp hovering over the actual stadium. I forget what stadium would that have been, the Rose Bowl? I can't remember what. No, it wasn't. That was 77. So I'm not sure what stadium they used in that movie. I didn't give it a mullet. I just couldn't get into this one. It's a movie about how could you make a movie about blowing up the Super Bowl boring? But I don't know. Bruce Stern just didn't do it for me, I guess. So,
So why do you think it could be made today? Just like post 9/11 kind of a
oh my
thing?
goodness. Well, maybe we're far enough out. That's why I think like it's
Yeah,
just such a sense of like, oh my gosh. And then like any idea you come up with would have to be so like for this movie to work, it has to be a plausible, you know what I mean?
sure.
And I don't think you could come like you wouldn't want to put it out there like a plausible circumstance, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
you would have to make it so ridiculous that like, oh my gosh, they have a secret, neutron bomb or something that doesn't exist. So I think if you're making that movie today, or maybe go campy, I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like that. I don't know. You think we're far enough away from September 11th that like they can make another movie like this?
yeah. Maybe. I mean, or maybe just people like are kind of done with the terrorists take something hostage, kind of our thing earlier about sudden death and everything. Or like you said that well, and like you said, I think they weren't even taking a hostage; they were just like trying to kill everybody, which is really dark. So you're right; you'd have to make it. I don't know. You'd have to make it different. I mean, the only thing that I can think that even comes close is Tom Clancy wrote a novel uh, later called The Sum of All Fears, and in that book, these terrorists blow up the Super Bowl. But I never saw the movie with Ben Affleck, but I think in the movie they don't make it to Super Bowl, and that I believe came
They
out
don't.
around 2001. So I think they had to modify it or something. Again, everything was more sensitive at that point, understandably so. But yeah, I mean, interesting the idea for a movie, but I don't know. I there's something about that era of movie, Steve, where it didn't seem like people hired editors, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And there is some shots of the Cowboys. Is the Steelers Cowboys Super Bowl? I want to say the second one,
okay, so it was the Orange Bowl probably, the stadium.
maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I can't tell from the picture here of the little thing. It's definitely an open air stadium. It's not a dome, but I don't think they played in domes yet. So next up on our list is a Heaven Can Wait. It stars Warren Beatty, Charles Grodin, James Mason, and Diane Cannon. The plot of this movie is a Los Angeles Rams quarterback accidentally taken away from his body by an over anxious angel before he was meant to die. He returns to life in the body of a recently murdered millionaire. So it's kind of interesting. Like I guess he wasn't. He gets run over, but he was supposed to, and he becomes like the backup quarterback of the. Well, I think he owns the Rams, and then he becomes the backup quarterback of the Rams somehow, and he plays in the Super Bowl. And the best Pittsburgh scene, it's his shots of edited Super Bowl 14 with like he throws like a pass or he fumble like it gets tipped. It's like a lucky play, like it bounces off. Like they literally have somebody in a Steelers uniform, and like he fumbles it or something, or he throws it and catches it and runs in for the game-winning touchdown. And that's Warren Beatty. The only way the Steelers in that era could lose is on a Hollywood editing, and Warren Beatty wasn't losing to the Steelers, that's for sure. The Rotten Tomatoes rating, oh my gosh, 85%. The critics love this film, Tim,
Wow.
and only 68% of the audience. I've watched it. It's funny. It's like a funny movie. I gave it a mullet. It's kind of seems like a silly enough comedy. They kind of throw in like a romantic angle. Like Diane Cannon's kind of the bad one that's trying to kill him. Like her and Charles Grodin the whole movie are trying to kill him because they want his money. And I guess this millionaire guy was kind of a bad guy. Now they've done the body switching thing. Like that's been done a million times too. I don't know if this is like this definitely probably wasn't the first time they did it, but I know like didn't Chris Rock do a movie where that happened? And I don't know. They've done stuff like this before. Have what are your thoughts on Heaven Can Wait? Can Heaven
Yeah.
wait for this film or
Yeah, my biggest thought is I can't believe that this movie came out in 1978 and the Super Bowl was the Rams versus the Steelers. And sure enough, in 1979, the real Super Bowl was, as we discovered recently, the Rams versus the Steelers. So how
so
about
you
that?
think the fix was in, huh?
Well, the NFL is scripted, so
They let the Steelers win this time.
Right. Yeah, because in the movie they lost, so in real life they had to win. That makes sense.
So next up on our list is a more modern film, The Dark Knight Rises, 2012. And I know Tim is probably going to have some strong opinions on this one, I think. Um, the biggest scene from this is the football game scene, obviously. It stars Christian Bale, Tom Hardaway, and Anne Hathaway. The plot is 8 years after the Joker's reign of chaos, Batman is coerced out of exile with the assistance of the mysterious Selina Kyle. And he's to defend Gotham City from the vicious guerrilla terrorist Bane. And obviously, everybody's seen this. I mean, my goodness, who hasn't? The best Pittsburgh scene is definitely Heinz Field getting blown up while Heinz Ward returns a kick. I mean, he's really dedicated to football, Tim. Even when the stadium's blowing up, he is returning a kick.
With a smile on
Um,
his face.
yeah, yeah. And it had starring. Okay, here comes the list. Former Mayor Luke Ravenstahl, Ben Roethlisberger, Heinz Ward, Troy Polamalu, Willie Colon, Marquise Pouncey, Mike Wallace, Heath Miller, Aaron Smith, Ryan Clark, James Ferrier, Lamar Woodley, and Casey Hampton. Okay. I think they pretty much covered all the Steelers, and Bill Cowher was in it, like in the background too, of the coach of.
I think Heinz
I
was
want
the
to
only
say
one that survived.
yes, yeah. I mean, I guess if you're because the sideline kind of falls in, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we just assume that all the people that were there are dead, but
Well, they couldn't kill him. Yeah, they couldn't kill him because they try and kill him. Heinz wasn't important enough to kill. I'm trying to feed into Heinz's inferiority complex. So
no one ever respected him enough to kill
kill
him.
him. Bane didn't respect him. Like,
Right.
who are you? Yeah.
Right.
Who is this man kick returning the ball? That's my best Bane. I'm sorry.
Nice.
Yeah. So this movie 90% from the audience. The audience loved it. And the critics loved it too at 87%. My rating is double mullets. I give it 2 mullets up on this one. Totally made the city look great, even when it was being blown up. All the cameos by the Steelers, it just was over the top. It was Pittsburgh all the time, all day. Even though like Gotham really in that movie is like an amalgam of Chicago, Pittsburgh, and I think Singapore or something, or in New York. So, but there's definitely parts where you're like, hey, that's Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Hey, that's downtown. Hey, they're blowing up the Heinz Field. So, and it's Heinz Field back then, so we can still call it Heinz Field, right?
Right.
We definitely have a link to that. You can go and watch that. It's pretty cool. Little kids singing the Star Spangled Banner, followed by total mayhem erupting. So, I know you're kind of opinionated on these film things, so I'll let you have at it, Tim.
Uh, not. I don't really have too strong of an opinion. The Christopher Nolan Batman films, my opinion is they're fine. They're fine. Like I
I thought
don't.
you didn't like them. Or is
I
that your
I
brother?
I,
No.
well, yeah, yeah. I wish we had my brother as a guest on here
Yeah.
because he what ruins it for him, and I get it, is the Batman sound like that because he sounds all muffled all the time when he's talking. But
What are you talking about, Tim?
right, that the yes, there you go, perfect impersonation. No, I like they're fine. Like I don't like they're entertaining. They're too long. They're all too long, including this one.
Well, you know
Uh,
what? This one I think is the slowest of all of them because it really takes probably 45 minutes for this to get going. But
yeah,
once it gets going, it's good. But it just feels like they threw an intro on with some action because like Christopher Nolan was like, oh my gosh, people are gonna fall asleep if I don't do this. Because like literally the first 45 minutes to an hour is like with Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, the Catwoman, just going back and forth, and
right.
Bruce Wayne go, "Oh, I'm not Batman anymore." Well, moving on to a movie that I think we'll both agree on is Abduction, and there's a scene at a Pirates game. It stars Tyler Lautner of the was it the Twilight movies, Alfred Molina, and it's directed by John Singleton. How John Singleton, the late, I think he's late. Yeah, he passed away. Started directing action movies. I'm not sure, but hey, here we are. Um, The plot is a young man sets out to uncover the truth about his life after finding his baby photo on a missing persons website. Actually, doesn't sound like a terrible plot, but it was. Uh, the best Pittsburgh scene was Taylor Lautner running all over PNC Park, and you know that glass they have over the escalator. He jumps off and kind of slides down
Slides
that.
down, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Um, it was not surprisingly, it got a 5% by the critics
Oof.
but it still got a 42%. I think this is our lowest rated film. 42% of the audience liked it. So
Wow.
I didn't give it a mullet. Much like the Pirates, this movie fails to take advantage of PNC Park. And it just sucks, just like the Pirates do. So cool chase scene though.
Yeah, it's not a good movie. It was definitely meant to capitalize on the what's the word I'm looking for? The teen love fest with Taylor Lautner,
Yeah.
right?
He's a
'Cause
werewolf. Yay, I love werewolves. No, I like
yeah,
vampires. Ooh.
right. I mean,
I like
he was
vampires. I like guys that are all depressed. Oh, I like werewolves. Guys that are all macho. There you go.
every generation
Is that
has
how it
their
works?
every generation has the poster of the movie star or model or whatever right in their room, and for
Just
the
admit it. You're a
generation.
secret. You're Team Jacob, aren't you? You have a picture of who's that actor from?
I mean, this was the era
That
of
guy.
Taylor Lautner and
Who was the
um
other guy?
the
Yeah,
guy from High School Musical, that kid, you
Zac
know,
Efron.
Zac
That's who you have
Efron.
a picture of in your bed. Zac Efron. You
Well, what
love
if I
Zac.
do? But that was this era, right? If you were
Yeah.
a like a teenager or a
He's actually
tween.
not a terrible actor, Zac Efron. Taylor
No,
Lautner
I
probably isn't really that good.
yeah, I mean, it just, that was the whole point. It's like he's in a movie, it's all centered around him. It really doesn't matter what the plot is. People are going to see it because it's him, and that was the whole
I'm
point.
sure at
So
some point his shirt like magically fell off. Like, oh, my shirt got a spot on it. I must take it off. Yeah, like, yeah. Moving on to stuff that won't get you arrested. A movie called Sweet Girl, and once again, it's at a Pirates game. Yes. It stars Jason Momoa and Isabel Merced. Plot is a devastated husband vows to bring justice to the people responsible for his wife's death while protecting the only family he has left, his daughter. The best Pittsburgh scene is Jason Momoa gets chased across the roof of PNC Park. I kind of watched how they did that shot. A lot of the city was green screened in, but he did kind of go through like a gate where he ends up on an outer part of PNC Park. That part was real, but like him running across the roof of PNC Park is not. That's a little Hollywood magic there. So the Rotten Tomatoes rating on this is 24%. The critics did not like it. 49% of the audience score, which is actually better than Abduction. So okay. I don't know. The shots at PNC Park looked cool. I didn't think much of it though. I'll give it no mullet. Sure. Maybe we
yeah,
should just give it a mullet because Aquaman's in it. He kind of has a mullet, right? I don't know.
yeah, I didn't like this movie. It was another hokey, um, so the whole reason, the whole thing he's trying to avenge with his wife's death, you would think from that description, it's like some bad guys came and murdered her or something.
Or
What
she
actually happens
jaywalking or
is,
something.
what's that?
Is she jaywalking? No.
No, what actually happens is he gets cancer, and there's this drug that could potentially, life-saving drug that could potentially save her from her cancer, but this pharmaceutical company and this CEO or the head of this company like doesn't approve or pulls it off the market or something. So it's literally the whole thing he's trying to avenge is a big pharma company not approving or giving them this drug that his wife needed to survive, and then she dies. It's just a weird. It's kind of a hokey plot to begin with, and then his daughter's kind of put into danger for like no good reason. it just
I mean, pharmaceutical companies are evil, but you would think they would make more money off of putting that drug out there and curing the disease than
right.
they could not. But
Well,
hey,
right.
what do I know?
There's a whole reason. I don't even remember or care to remember. It's just it's like it's very forced. Everything's forced, and I didn't think it was very good. One thing that though, we always talk about like the Cole Pittsburgh shots. One thing that almost nobody would care about is there's a scene where I think it's the FBI or whoever the whoever the law enforcement agency is. They're in their offices and they're at their desk trying to figure out the case or whatever. Well, the desk that they're at is the office that I worked in for about 13, 14
Nice.
years before we moved to a different building. And I'm like, hey, I recognize those cubicles, right? I sat there for years and years. So that was kind of neat. But other than that, meh.
The meh.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Next movie, She's Out of My League. And the Penguins game is the big thing in this one. It stars Jay Becquerel, Alice Eve, and TJ Miller. TJ Miller is kind of that guy. He's been in a lot of stuff. I don't know about Alice Eve and Jay Becquerel. I don't know if they've been in anything else. But the plot is an average Joe meets the perfect woman, but his lack of confidence and the influence of his friends and family begin to pick away at the relationship. The best scene is definitely at the Pens game at the old Civic Arena. I didn't realize this movie was that old, 2010. So still lots of stuff from the Civic Arena. It Rotten Tomatoes rating 57% by the critics and 59% by the audience. So definitely better than the last two we've talked about, huh, Tim? And I why not? I gave it a flowing mullet because of just the old Civic Arena shots, nice nostalgia there, and but it must be a fictional event because the Penguins beat the Islanders like they were playing.
Uh,
It's definitely a movie that loses some credibility there. They should have lost the Bears for sure. So.
yeah. I
This is
mean,
another movie you always see on cable, Tim. But I won't stop. I'll stop and watch 5 minutes of it, but never. I don't think I would stick around for the whole thing.
yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those um, like Ben Stiller could have been in it. It's one of those like poor sap guy who you're trying to root for, but he just keeps messing everything up and all that kind of stuff. It's fine. I like you said the hockey scenes, the scenes in the arena are fun because now probably at the time you didn't think much of it, but now it's like you said that you can't that's kind of a little time capsule. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah. Next up is The Odd Couple. Now, I'm not talking about the play, the Broadway play, or the TV show from the 70s or the TV show from the 2010s. I'm talking about The Odd Couple movie from, let's see what year, 1968. And this was based on it was written by Neil Simon, and it's based on a Neil Simon play. And it's actually a very interesting plot for the time back then. It stars Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, who are really good in it. A New Yorker newly separated from his wife moves in with his best friend, a divorced sports writer, but their ideas of housekeeping and lifestyles are as different as night and day. It's kind of like, I mean, this has been done like Two and a Half Men kind of had this kind of to it, but not as extreme. Where Walter Matthau is a hard drinking sports writer, doesn't keep his house clean, whereas Jack Lemmon is. I mean, now if this was written now, Jack Lemmon would obviously be gay, but at this point, it was just he's just one of those guys that's very neat. So Lemmon is very neat and considerate. So a fun thing is they're filming a scene where Mathau's obviously a reporter covering the Mets in New York because it takes place in New York, and Jack Lemmon calls him to tell him what he's making for dinner, much like your wife would, and interrupts Mathau missing a triple play, which wins the Mets the game. Well, that linked on our website too. Fun fact: Bill Mazeroski, who's actually in this film and batting kept hitting singles with this instead of hitting it like right to the third baseman. So Mask could do no wrong. He was always clutch. Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, I think this is the highest rated movie on our list. Maybe. I don't know. It might be that it's between that and The Dark Knight. Yeah, this is higher than The Dark Knight, Tim. 89% audience score and 98%. The critics do really like this movie, but the audience likes it too. It definitely trends older. I think it was more revolutionary at the time because I think divorce was just becoming more widely accepted. And that's kind of like some of the themes this movie deals with is like what happens to men after they get divorced and how do they move on. And, obviously these two guys, what made it funny was just their different, ways of living their lives. So I gave it the full mullet. Definitely a great version of the play. Better than the TV show or the remake of the TV show with the late Matthew Perry. Tim, are you a fan of The Odd Couple? You probably like the remake with Matthew Perry, don't you? Don't you?
I did not see the remake. I think, yeah, anything like Jack Lemmon and Walter
And there's a
Matthau.
TV show version too, which
Right.
did not. Who was it? Jack Klugman and
Tony Randall,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau just always good together.
Yeah,
Even
grumpy old
in
men.
their older years, they would,
Yeah.
make movies together. So they had good chemistry, and that's really funny that I didn't realize that Bill Mazeroski, again, was supposed to hit into a triple play, and he kept messing it up by getting hits. That's really funny.
He's clutch, man.
He couldn't have actually hit into a triple play apparently, no matter how hard he tried. So
I do believe that's it. That's it for the list. We'll finish up with The Odd Couple. It's kind of like us, Tim. We're an odd couple, right? Kind of I think I'm the slobby one and you're the neat one. So
I'll take it.
there you go. But yeah, if you have any comments on any movies, want to think we missed any sports, so it's just sports films, not just anything that was just randomly filmed in Pittsburgh. But anything we missed, any comments, drop us a line at our website or email. Always good word of mouth. Just keep spreading the word. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Pittsburgh Sports Memories.